billionaire land developer from Dallas, Texas, took everything from a poor Oklahoma farmer, 120 acres, for generations of family land, gone in a single court filing. The farmer had no lawyer, no money, no connections. He walked into that courtroom carrying everything he owned in a plastic grocery bag. The courtroom laughed at him. The judge pitied him. The opposing lawyer ignored him. But what James Carter pulled out of that plastic bag changed every single person in that courtroom forever. Pause 3 seconds. Look down and back up slowly. My name is Karamat Hussain Janjua. I am a lawyer by profession. And in all my years of studying cases, this one still gives me chills. Studio microphone subscribe moment. Slightly warmer tone. Lean forward slightly. Before I tell you this story, if you believe that truth always finds a way and that ordinary people can defeat powerful ones, then this channel was made for you. Hit subscribe. Because every single week, I bring you stories exactly like this one. Real, powerful, and unforgettable. Now, let me take you back to a small town in rural Oklahoma. Population, just under 3,000 people. Where everybody knows everybody. And where powerful men think they can get away with anything. Studio microphone background story. Settle back. Storytelling voice. Warm but serious. James Carter was 58 years old. He had never worn a suit in his life. Never needed one. His life was his land. 120 acres of rich Oklahoma soil that his great-grandfather had first plowed back in 1887. For generations of Carters had been born on that land, raised on that land, buried on that land. James woke up every morning at 4:30 a.m., fed his animals, walked his fields, and thanked God for what his family had built. He was not a rich man, but he was a proud man, and he was a free man. Pause. Richard Holloway was everything James Carter was not. Holloway was 52 years old, a real estate developer based in Dallas, Texas, worth an estimated $340 million. He had lawyers on speed dial, judges at his dinner table, politicians who returned his calls within the hour. Holloway had been watching James Carter's land for 3 years, 120 acres, sitting right in the path of a proposed highway development. If Holloway could acquire that land, he stood to make somewhere between $8 and $12 million in a single transaction. There was just one problem. James Carter would never sell. Holloway had approached him twice personally, offered him fair market value, then above market value, then nearly double. James smiled politely both times and said the same thing. Mr. Holloway, my great-grandfather broke this soil with bare hands. My grandfather is buried under that oak tree in the east field. My father taught me to walk on this land. I will die on this land. It is not for sale at any price. Holloway smiled back, shook his hand, and drove away in his Mercedes. Pause. Lower your voice slightly. 3 months later, James Carter received a legal notice. Holloway was claiming the land was his. He had filed forged documents with the county land registry showing a purchase agreement dated March 14, 1998. He had paid a county official to backdate and stamp the records. He had found 2 witnesses, both with outstanding debts to Holloway's associate companies, who signed sworn statements supporting his claim. Everything looked completely legitimate. James Carter had 30 days to respond or vacate. Studio microphone the courtroom arrival. Slow down. Let every word land. James Carter could not afford a lawyer. He called 3 firms. The cheapest quote he received was $15,000 just to begin. He had $2,200 in his bank account. So James Carter did something that nobody expected. He went to the county public library. Every single day for 3 weeks, James sat at a corner table from opening time to closing time, reading, learning, taking handwritten notes on yellow legal pads. He read about property law, land registry procedures, evidence rules, court filing requirements, and then, very carefully, he read every single word of the 47-page document that Holloway's legal team had submitted to the court. Every single word. The librarian, a kind elderly woman named Dorothy, later told reporters. He came in every morning when we opened. He never asked for help. He just sat there reading and writing. I brought him coffee sometimes. He always said, "Thank you." Pause. On the morning of the hearing, James Carter put on his cleanest shirt. It was faded and worn at the collar. He had no briefcase. He placed his yellow legal pads and his one single piece of paper inside a plastic grocery bag from the local Walmart, and he drove his 2003 pickup truck to the courthouse. Studio microphone the courtroom scene. This is your most dramatic section. Slow down even more. Holloway arrived in a black Range Rover. His legal team, 3 lawyers in matching dark suits, carried polished leather briefcases and spoke in quiet, confident tones. The courtroom was small but full. Word had gotten around town about the case. When James Carter walked in, worn shirt, plastic grocery bag, work boots, a ripple of quiet laughter moved through the room. Holloway's lead lawyer, a sharp man named Gerald Patterson, looked at James the way you look at something insignificant. He didn't even acknowledge him. The judge, Honorable William R. Stanton, entered. Everyone rose. Judge Stanton looked over his glasses at James and said with barely concealed impatience, "Mr. Carter, I see you have no legal representation. Are you certain you wish to proceed without counsel?" James stood up straight. "Yes, Your Honor. I represent myself." Patterson smiled. Someone in the gallery actually laughed out loud. Judge Stanton silenced the room with one look, then nodded for proceedings to begin. Pause. Looked directly into camera. Patterson performed brilliantly. 47 pages of impeccable documentation, notarized signatures, county stamps, registry records, 2 sworn witness statements, a timeline so precise and detailed it seemed impossible to challenge. Patterson spoke for 40 minutes without a single hesitation. When he finished, he straightened his jacket and sat down with the quiet confidence of a man who knows he has already won. Judge Stanton made a note, reviewed several pages. Then, almost as an afterthought, he looked up and said, "Mr. Carter, do you have anything to submit to this court?" The gallery shifted. Some people were already reaching for their coats. James Carter stood up slowly. He reached into his plastic Walmart bag, and he placed one single piece of paper on the table in front of him. 1 page. The gallery went quiet, but not out of respect. Out of pity, Patterson actually turned to his colleague and raised an eyebrow. James looked at the judge and said quietly, "Your Honor, I would ask you to look at page 7, just page 7, of Mr. Holloway's own submission." Judge Stanton frowned slightly. He turned to page 7 of Patterson's 47-page document. Pause. Let silence sit for 4 to 5 seconds. His expression changed. Pause again. He turned back to page 1, then back to page 7. Then he looked at the single page James had submitted. The single page was a federal agricultural subsidy payment record, obtained free of charge from the United States Department of Agriculture Public Records database. It showed that on December 3rd, 1998, the United States government had issued an agricultural subsidy payment to Thomas Earl Carter, James's father, for farming operations conducted on the 120 acres of land in question. December 1998, 9 months after Holloway claimed he had legally purchased that same land. The U.S. federal government had paid Thomas Carter as the legal owner of land that, according to Holloway's documents, Holloway had already owned for 9 months. One of these documents was fraudulent, and it was not the USDA record. Pause. Look down slowly, then back at camera. Buried on page 7 of Holloway's own 47-page submission, in a dense paragraph of property descriptions, was a reference number. That reference number corresponded to the same USDA agricultural record. Holloway's own legal team had accidentally included a document reference that directly contradicted their entire case. They had been so confident, so thorough, so detailed, that they had buried their own fraud inside their own evidence. James Carter nodded once and walked out into the Oklahoma sunshine. Pause. Look directly into camera. Speak softly. Richard Holloway was later charged with land fraud, bribery of a public official, and filing false instruments with a county court. He faced up to 22 years in federal prison. 3 county officials were suspended pending investigation. Gerald Patterson's firm faced a state-barred disciplinary review. And James Carter? He went home, fed his animals, walked his fields, and thanked God. Long pause. A reporter who covered the case asked James one question afterward. Mr. Carter, how did you know to look at page 7? James thought for a moment. Then he said, My father always told me, when a powerful man gives you a lot of paper, somewhere in that paper is a truth. You just have to be willing to read every word. __. Always more powerful than connections. Always more powerful than 47 pages of beautiful lies. Pause. My name is Karamat Hussain Janjua. I am a lawyer, and I tell these stories because the world needs to hear them. If this story moved you, if you believe that ordinary people deserve extraordinary justice, then please subscribe to this channel. Share this video with one person today. Just one. Because somewhere out there is a James Carter who needs to know that truth wins. It always wins. Pause. Look down and back up. I will see you in the next story.